a good way to start out is you're not really pulling on the legs, you're getting yourself into the fascia of the legs and just stretching up the fronts of them. Now this is a technique where you put a little bit of an arc in there, and this is a technique that'll be better explained in an advanced video. But that way you can feel if there's any restrictions going on, and actually once you start getting good at feeling what this fascia feels like, you can find other restrictions that might be higher up into the hip and low back area. And you might notice that there's a little slight movement that's going on, and that's a bit of an unwinding that's happening in that fascial stocking. At least that's the way I interpret it, because I've worked with my hands for so long and picked up this for so long that that's how I interpret what's going on and what I'm feeling. It does seem to change things too for people. So I'll start with this side. You want to make sure their hand is, put the hand underneath here. We're going to need to slide up a little bit here, but we want to be very careful. You want to be very mindful of the comfort of your client. And then we'll be applying the oil. And down to the feet. Okay. I like to give a little bit of a pull, a little traction as I start on the feet, and I'm rubbing the front of the feet, and I'm giving a traction where there's a feeling of a pull of the body, but again, it's not like pulling the bones, it's more pulling into the soft tissue and the structure there. Start along the arch. The arch is, in foot reflexology, is along where the spine is, so since we just worked that spine, that's a good place to start on the foot. And get into the pads of the feet. Rubbing along the heel. There's an articulation that can go on with the heel. You can kind of move the joint around a little bit. It's sort of a joint. It does move. It's probably not considered a classic joint, but it does have some movement in it. And then the toes, each individual little toe. Not only just work the toe, but you can also do a little range of motion. And this can happen face up. It actually is a little bit easier to do some of this when they're on their back. And that looks pretty good. A little range of motion in the foot. Spreading and bending. You know, it's very good to go barefoot. The feet need to be on uneven surfaces in order to have a strong foot and ankle. And oftentimes keeping them in shoes, especially shoes that are odd shaped, not real good for your feet, will start to carry your foot into that kind of a position. And that's where toes start to topple on top of each other and squeeze together or bend inward. It really has to do with the shoe. There are some things you can find online that separate the toes, which are a good idea to do if your toes are buckling on top of each other. Some of those toe separators are a little aggressive, so you may need to start with a smaller spread. Now here I'm going right up the calf. And I'm going into three different locations. The sides and then the middle. And then coming up and picking up. Now again, we're going to be picking up this muscle. and kneading it around. And my thumbs, you'll see on the other side, are going underneath on the lateral side of the leg, as well as the medial side, picking it up and wringing it. So it's kind of this is like what it looks like. But as you get better at it and more familiar with how it works, you will find your speed will pick up a little bit. You still don't want to go super fast, but you'll find that you know how to grip the muscle, you'll know how to work that muscle, and it won't have to be done quite so slowly. Now, getting up into the knee, be very careful of the back of the knee. It's best to go around the knee on one side and the other, and more broad hand over the back of the knee. Don't go in with your thumbs. There's too many delicate things back there. And then the same thing, we're going to come up the center on the adducting muscles and then cross across the hamstrings along the erector spinae, the iliotibial tract, which is the side of the leg, the lateral side of the leg. I move my thumbs up and down. That's a very tight band, especially with runners. It's a support band. It's more tendinous in its nature than soft muscle. And then just doing a little bit of work up the center of the hamstring. Okay. And then bringing it back down, covering this up, and bringing yourself back down, giving a little traction pull as you're doing this. And then, now when you come down here and you're doing a little traction, you're not pulling like the work downward. You're pulling again into that fascial structure. It's a lighter touch. You want to start to differentiate the different layers that you have, particularly the subtle layers. I find that that's where massage will be a little bit different in the way it's applied when those different layers are understood, and you can work within those different layers or separate them out and work with one layer and then another layer. And then the second leg, we'll do the same thing here with the hand under, so we can tuck this up just a little. Tuck it in there. Okay, so we've just applied the oil, and we're going to do the same thing on this leg. I usually sit on the end of the table if people aren't too long, because I can get a better angle as I am doing this kind of fascial stretching. So I usually sit down if people aren't too tall, because I get a better angle, being able to make this pull, this kind of a stretch on the fascial structure. And then we'll start up in with the arch of the foot and just begin to work in there. Well, the feet are really tough. And the heel, going around the heel. Again, you want to be real thorough. It's covering every point and making a little range of motion happen. Range of motion in the foot, coming up to the toes. Not only just rubbing, but a little range of motion of a twist back and forth. We'll do some different things, face up. Okay, and then coming into the ankle. All right, starting here, down here at the Achilles, up we go to the center. And there was a little jump there. I might have been a little too deep for that. then this leg has a lot more of a washboard feel, which is sometimes described as lactic acid in the muscle, but this muscle doesn't feel as smooth, particularly up here. There's much more ripply effect in the muscle, so there's some tension, and that might have been why there was that little jump. But it is starting to smoothen out, and you have to go very light and careful, and slowly you'll be coming deeper into that. Also taking it, the thumbs crisscross, cross fiber to relax anything down under there. Then be sure to go up the 3 different areas. So you're going center and then on either side. Then we can pick up the muscle here. I'll do the inside and then show you. Here, the outside is the same thing. You're bringing those thumbs under and picking up that muscle. Feeling the attachment right along the bone. So I'm right along the bone and then picking it up, gliding and picking it up. And you will be able to feel where there's tension, because it should feel real smooth along the bone, and where there is a tight area, it will feel tight. It'll have like a little bump type of feeling. And you'll be able to distinguish between muscle bumps and other kind of bumps, because sometimes there's these fatty tumor type things that people have on their arms or legs, but that feels completely different than a muscle that's tense along the attachment. The knee, remember, we don't go into the knee. It's important to go on either side of the knee, as that is important to stay healthy, to keep the knee in good shape. We don't want to have these muscles tense and pulling out the knee. Although I will say that the knee alignment with the toe, with the foot, is extremely important to keep those knees in good working order. Any deviation from the knee over that big toe will take it out of alignment. Sort of like it's a hinge joint. The knee is more of a hinge joint, and so it makes sense that if the hinge isn't exactly on balance, if the fulcrum of the knee isn't in place, then it's going to be, over time, it will be wearing out on one side or the other, and the muscles will also be affected by that. Now again, we're just picking up these inner adductor muscles, and we've gone up through the hamstrings, coming across the hamstrings here, and then going down to the iliotibial tract, and just bringing your thumbs up and down, a cross fiber type work up to the attaching point, and then nice running the fingers like a finger iron or a thumb iron, and feeling into that muscle. And you also want to go on the edge. So you want to go on the edge of the iliotibial tract. Again, it's not really a muscle, but it's more of a support. And then in the middle of that, and then on the front edge of it. Okay. And then we can bring this back down. And to the feet. Now there's some things you can also do on when the body is on its stomach, and that is a little range of motion by just picking the knee and taking it back. But you want to do this carefully, because what I have found is there's not a lot of people that are real limber. A lot of people are extremely stiff, so some of this gets a little bit painful at times, or it can. And then put your hand underneath the knee, and you can just lift the hip up and back. supporting the ankle, but just taking it straight up and down. And then if you want, you can take it to the side a little bit and over and just move it around a little. But pay close attention to exactly what's happening, how much resistance you're getting, because if you're getting resistance, you're not going to want to push yourself into that. Now here we're bending the knee, but we want that toe lined up. So we're not going to have the foot bending like that. We're going to have it straight and lift slightly. Now when I do this, I also pull the toes, but not the bones, and make a stretch happen like so. Okay, so that's a little range of motion. You can pick it up and also just shake a little and then bring it down. You're going to find, depending on what your size is as a therapist, some bodies are really hard to move because they're heavy, and you don't want them to use any of the muscle to help you, because you don't want any muscle activation when you're doing this. You want to have it relaxed so that you can get a stretch in it. So we're going to stretch this way. Okay, and then lift slightly. Maybe bring it a little to the side. You can rotate, but make sure that you're rotating that knee and that foot are staying in line. This is an easier side for you to see what I'm doing. And then even up here, you can also work the foot up in this direction. I'm just showing other variations that can be added, but be sure you do the same on both sides. I'm not doing that now. And then you can take a stretch of that quadricep by bending back, but again, you want that toe to line up over that knee, and then bring that up slightly. Is that okay? And then bringing this down, you can take both legs again and do like we did at the beginning, where you're stretching. Pulling those toes. You can also shake the legs. And there's another thing that can be done, which I'll show you. I never used potement, which is a pounding, but you can either use fists, but I like to use the fingers open so that it claps kind of the fingers together, but you can also do a little tapotement. I don't really like tapotement myself, but a lot of people do. So that's what you can also add to some of this work. But I will say that a lighter tapotement is really when your fingers are apart and they're coming together, kind of like that. So you can do that on the back or anywhere. The thing about tapotement, though, is you don't want to go over the joint, the delicate areas of the knee, and it's best not to make tapotement happen on a bone, a real bony area. Okay, so that's about all there is to do with that, with the legs.